All right, so chapter 6.3 notes, continuing with what's normal. And so for some of you old school Batman fans here, a nice little deep thought on that one. All right, so we spent some time already finding normal percentiles. This hopefully looks familiar to you. SAT, we had the 500. And then you scored a 600, so then we were figuring out, how much you did better than and all that stuff. And so, we went here to 600, and we figured out because from there to our mean is 50, and we figured that this is 34, and so you scored better than 84% of everyone else, and only 16% if you go the other side, right? Because that whole thing has to add up to 100. So that's all nice, and you guys are getting pretty good at that. All right, so that one's all fine and dandy, but what if your score was 680? Where do you stand among the rest of the people tested? So as they look at this, 680s maybe somewhere in there. And we've worked with, right, if you landed right at 600, that was one standard deviation. If you landed right at 700, that was two standard deviations. So then we knew, hey, like we talked about already, that was 84. And if we go all the way to there, it was 97.5. But what happens, how do we get there at 680? Kind of falls in between stuff, so we know we're somewhere between 84 and 97.5, a little closer to 97.5, but how accurate can we get? And so this is where this idea of what we want to do is we want to standardize, which is one of the things we talked about last week, the data. And so we start by finding our z-score. So remember, our z is equal to our observed value, so 680 minus our mean, which in this case is 500, divided by the standard deviation, which is 100. And that gives us a z-score of 1.8. So we're 1 point standard deviations. So like we said, we're kind of that close to that 700. But that still doesn't give us an accurate picture. So that brings in these here. So these are z-score tables. The one on the left is for the negative value, so your z-score is to the left of your mean. And the one on the right is for your z-scores to the right of the mean, our negative and positive sides of it. We have a positive 1.8, so we're going to take a look at that one. So here's a zoomed in version. And then the way this works is you go down the left column here, and you find your first value. All right, so I get to 1.8. And then across the top is your second decimal. Well, we were 1.80, so we're going to be here at 00. And then we see where those meet. So we can see our percent is right there. So 0.9641, or as a percentage, 96.41%. And so this top portion, remember I always talk about you going to two decimal places for your z-score. That is why we always need to go to that second one to find where we meet up at. All right, so they want to know your score, and so now we can be accurate to the 96.4%. So let's now take a look at a problem here. So kind of given the area, we already have the answer, but I want to talk about how we find this. So we want to find the area between the two curves. So we have that negative 0.5, and so that means we're going to go to that table with the negative side. And so both these tables are also in Canvas as a PDF in there for you to look at as well. You can search them if you find one better you like. So the negative 0.5, you'll find that, and it's going to be 0.3085. And so that's going to be all of this over here, right? And then we do our 1 standard deviation. So we can just go to 1, and this time that's the positive. So we're going to look at the positive 1 of that. And the positive side of that is going to be 0.8413. And that is now this total area. So still going from here, but now we're going all the way to there. So we've kind of done this before. And what we really want is just this leftover green, so we can subtract out this blue area, which we know comes from that. So essentially you take the whole area and you take away the part that you don't want. All right, so 0.8413 minus 0.3085, and that gives us 0.5328, which when you round becomes 53.28%, or as they had it, still rounded 0.53. That 8 rounds the 2 up to a 3 as well. And so there you go. That's how you can find it in between two portions. All right, so here's a couple of them I want you to work through. So you have one where you're going to answer each of these different values. Okay, and then don't forget, again, you have the Z table that I posted in Canvas along with this lesson, or you can search one up. Doesn't matter, they're all going to be the same. And then here's a problem completely from scratch. So we've done this, so it's based off our SAT problem. And so we want to find what proportion of SAT scores fall between 450 and 600. And so work through that, kind of going all the stuff we've done up until this point and see if you can find an answer. Okay, and then if you have any questions, I will obviously be going over this on Tuesday and Wednesday and getting plenty of practice with this.